This is the second video of the rebuild of the locomobile. We were talking about water pumps in the boiler. Well, what happens when you're driving the car, the engine's running and it's pumping water into the boiler. But there are times when you stop the car and the water in the boiler is going down because you're either blowing a whistle or steam is kind of getting out, and eventually the boiler will start to drop and you have to get water back in, and the only way to do it is drive the car, or one of the ways they used to in the old days, jack up the rear wheel. They would put a jack under the rear wheel and run the engine, and that would put water back in the boiler. That's not practical in this day and age. Back then it probably was, but this day and age is not. So what I ended up doing was I designed and built what I call an in-out box. And what the in-out box does is it gives you the ability to disengage the engine from the rear wheels, and therefore you can run the engine pumps at a stationary, at a light or a stationary parked or wherever you want to be. You don't have to drive the car. We haven't tried it yet, but we've gone through it. I've actually gone through it, and the system does work. It works very well. It's the way it's set up. There's a chain, and there's no reduction or increase or decrease in reduction. It's a 1-to-1. Those two sprockets out there are a 1-to-1, so keeping with the original, I think it's 2.5 to 3-to-1, or 3-to-1 on from the engine to the rear wheels. That's been kept. That hasn't changed. But what occurs is when you want to, when you come to a light and you stop the engine, this in-out box is only made to operate when you're stopped, not when you're actually moving. So what happens is when you're driving the vehicle and you come to a stop and you want to pump the boiler up because you're low on water, you simply come over to here, and you would, it's engaged right now, you would step on this pedal, and this pedal has a latching mechanism which is right here, and this is actually a pedal from a Model T whistle pedal or a exhaust cutout, and I picked it up and installed it on the car, and it did what I wanted it to do. So what you would do is you would step on the pedal with your heel and it would lock in. And when you do that, what it does is it disengages the mechanism. It's a dog that gets moved, and I'm going to try to operate at the same time. And you'll see the dog right now is disengaged, but as soon as the engine starts to turn, the dog drops into place, and now you're in gear. And now that would be, this position would be out of gear, and you could run the pumps. Now that's done through a series of linkages. This linkage comes over. I fabricated the linkage to make it look original as possible. It comes across, it goes onto a bell crank, which goes forward to that pedal I just showed you. And that works very well. Again, it's only made for when you're stationary. And what would occur is when you came to a stop, you would step on the pedal. If you had to pump the boiler up, pump it up. When you're ready to go, you disengage. Now, if it's slightly off, if it's not, in line to drop in again, which I'll put it in that position, what you would do is you would just start the engine just ever so slightly. As the engine rotates very slowly, I'm just going to move the car to demonstrate it. The engine starts to turn, and then it drops in place. There's a spring, as part of my design, there's a spring in there that always gives you a positive engagement at all times. So it wants to stay in gear, and you're working against the spring to put it into a neutral position. I think that should do it for this particular video, and we're going to do another one and talk more about the car.